Hey there, everyone. So today I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process, or the step-by-step process of launching a cold email outbound campaign using sequences within Lead Forward. So the first thing I just want to kind of cover, you may already have experience with doing some type of email marketing, but cold email outreach is a completely different email animal as it relates to outbound email than maybe sending out a campaign through Constant Contact or MailChimp or something like this. And there's a lot of really important differences between email marketing and um, uh, sales based email. So particularly around cold. So we're gonna get dive into all of those differences, but very quickly, let's just kind of talk about what the goal is, and what you should expect from your cold email platform, whatever that may be. So at the very top level of goals and outcomes that we're looking to achieve with our platform for cold email, the first is to appear human, and the second is to appear human so that we can ideally bypass as much scrutiny from spam filters as possible. So, spam filters are very good at spotting automated emails and scrutinizing them more based on the fact that it looks like it's a marketing piece. Our goal is to try to make your email look like it is both not a marketing piece and also that it's sent from a human being. So, big difference between the approaches. So, the first approach with the first major differentiator with the cold email approach versus what you may have done in the past with your email marketing is, for one, we're sending from real mailboxes. We're not connecting to an email service provider and sending as much email as we can as quickly as we can. This is a completely different approach. We also want to send from non-primary domains, meaning if your acme.com is your corporate domain and your corporate email address uses that domain, you do not want to send cold email through that domain. You would want to set up alternate, what we call cold email burner domains. And we call them that not necessarily because you're doing anything nefarious, but if something were to happen to the domain, it's not impacting your daily business or your daily business communication. So we're going to use alternate domains, and we're going to set up mailboxes within those alternate domains. And you can match the branding of your domain. And as an example, with Lead Forward, we have leadforwardgrowth.com. So you can depend on different words, different terms. Try to stick with the typical top level domains like .com when you're getting them, and be mindful of length, but it's not necessarily a big issue. But you just want the domain name that you choose to at least mention and assimilate to your existing branding. The next piece is, unlike email marketing, which again is about sending email as quickly as possible, we limit the sending capability of your mailbox, again, to make it look like it's human. So the typical ceiling that you will get to in terms of email volume for a single mailbox once it's warmed up is about 20 to 30, 35 emails per day is like your safe limit, before again you start inviting more scrutiny from ISPs and mailbox security or spam prevention systems. So that again is all tailored around the frequency, that is tailored around trying to make it look human. But the more volume you send, the greater the chance is that someone is going to mark your message as spam. So trying to keep things within reasonable limits is the way that we're going to go. We're going to want to use tools like Spintax to make each email that we send out, potentially slightly different with different variations. We are not going to be tracking opens or click-through rates. Those types of vanity metrics aren't all that important in cold email. What we want to look at is our reply rate and how many folks are replying to us. Those vanity metrics as well, particularly opens and clicks, are going to invite more scrutiny to our message as well. So open rates require that a small 1x1 pixel image be inserted into an email right off the bat. Any ISP that's receiving that email message, if they see that pixel, they're going to know that it's coming from a platform and not from, potentially not from a human. And then on links, the problem with adding links into your email is, particularly tracking links, which ultimately redirect your recipient from a platform link that's built in Lead Forward and then redirects them to your final link, which could be your website, is also a common way that phishing scams are run, where an email will show chase.com, but will ultimately redirect to a different site. So links and images hurt deliverability, so we like to avoid those. We want to send text-based messages, and I don't mean just text inside a typical HTML email format. We want to literally send plain text, which is a bit of a cheat code when it comes to cold email today, because plain text gets a lot less scrutiny from spam filters because it doesn't support the ability to include hyperlinks. It doesn't have the capacity for any rich media like images. So in terms of risk factors for recipient mailboxes, plain text is just text and nothing else. So it generally gets a little bit more of a pass than a rich HTML email message, which supports different formatting and can support images and hyperlinks and all of that. The final piece I just want to touch on quickly, and this article will be linked as well, so you can take a look at it. It's very important to, especially when you're just starting out with a mailbox or a new mailbox that's being ramped up, which we're going to cover in a second, to ensure that you're only sending to prospects with a verified email address to begin. And if you're using our LinkedIn prospecting tool, then it's very easy to just export contacts with verified email addresses into your sequence or your campaign. And that's the way you want to go, because you want to minimize bounces. Because one big issue is attempting to send emails to mailboxes that do not exist is going to be a red flag. So you want to avoid that. And you're still going to have some type of bounce rate even when you're sending to verified email addresses, because often, blocked attempts based on content or based on sender reputation or lack of sender reputation, or simply a user's settings on their own mailbox, or the domain's settings for managing mailboxes on their domain, could be so extreme that your message gets blocked just based on rules that they have set up for spam prevention. And those types of blocks can be counted as bounces. So you want to, starting with verified is the best way to go, because it's going to give you the most minimal bounce rate across your entire sequence. Okay, so again, I'm going to link this so you can check out this article, Cold Emails Do This, Not That. And we get into detail on all of the things I just covered. And our cold email launch guide, I'll also link to, and this also drills down into a lot of practices and this overall methodology that I'm going to be showing you today, and kind of the background of the philosophy and how it works, along with a step-by-step guide for setting everything up. All right, so we're going to go into our staging account. So the first step before you launch your sequences, you got to connect mailboxes. And if you're new to this and you're just getting started, I would recommend using Google Workspace or Office 365. Both are priced similarly. They're right around $7 a month with tax for one single mailbox. Again, if you're just getting started with this, starting with 3 or 5 mailboxes until you get the hang of it is a good approach. And at 5 mailboxes, once you ramp up your mailboxes sending rate, you're going to be looking at sending around the capacity to send around 150 emails per day. So, again, and your scale comes, once you lock in some good messaging and you're, starting to receive replies, then you can start scaling it out and adding more mailboxes to increase your volume. So, once with either Google Workspace or Office 365, they both support OAuth for authentication. This is covered in our articles. I'll link them as well for setting up mailboxes. There's an extra step when it comes to going with Google Workspace. You just have to log into your admin console for your domain and add the Lead Forward app before you come here and click sign in with Google. These are the steps. It's very simple. It's covered in an article as well, which I'll share as part of this video as well. And then if you want to do a Office 365 mailbox. It's really just a one-click simple. There's no app to add like Google Workspace, and it's always a good idea too once you reach some level of scale to split up and use both Google Workspace mailboxes and Office 365 mailboxes, so you're not necessarily reliant on just one of those platforms. So I'll just demonstrate this quickly. So signed in, I was already logged in with Bugs Bunny here, and as you can see, just one click, and then you're in. Once you connect one for the same domain, then the next time around, it'll prompt you to log into whichever Office 365 account you want to add. But it's really that simple. Now, within the Mailbox Manager, you're going to find a lot of our tools that are built around the deliverability aspect of the cold outbound. So let me just illustrate some of those. I'm going to go to the settings icon and then mailbox options. So first off, if you want to add a BCC email address automatically to any outbound message, in this case coming from Bugs Bunny, for example, you can BCC your CRM, and we have some articles on different CRMs that support that. Then every message that you send can automatically be added to your CRM. And if that particular prospect exists in your CRM, then it will append and attribute that email sent to that particular record. And I mean, this is common functionality in Salesforce, and HubSpot has a similar function, Pipedrive as well. It's a very quick and easy way just to keep your CRM up to date if you keep your cold prospects in your CRM. If you don't and you wait until the point where a prospect is qualified or sales ready to add them to the CRM, then you can just ignore this. Assign branded tracking domain. So again, we don't really want to enable click tracking for top of the funnel cold outbound. However, since Lead Forward does support a number of playbooks that go full funnel, so top of the funnel to mid funnel to even upselling existing customers or even customer support, you may want to enable tracking for different segments of your funnel. So for a warm lead that's already responded that you're engaging with, that maybe you're adding them to a recycle campaign, if they've gone radio silent, just an example, someone that's replied to you in the past, that would be a slightly safer use case to have click tracking enabled. But the good thing about branded domains is we can match up your sending domain that's used for any of your mailboxes to use this particular URL to mask our link tracking domain instead of using the Lead Forward domain. Your domain would appear, and it's great if your sending address that's in the from line can match any links that are inside the email. That is if you look at spam prevention as sort of like an accumulation of points for issues with your message, the lower your score is, the better. So taking things off the radar really helps overall with inbox placement and deliverability. So the branded links require that you create a CNAME record in your DNS zone. This is covered in one of our help articles. And what we do after you add the CNAME to Lead Forward and we validate it, we'll actually automatically try to match up that particular domain that you've added to the branded links to any mailboxes that already exist that use that domain as well. But you can also come in and manually select it under mailbox options. If you just connected your mailbox for the first time, I'd recommend you enable ramp up mode. And ramp up mode basically is a warm up feature, but it's not a typical fake artificial email warm up feature, which I'm opposed to. I have a separate article on that too, which I'll link you to. But what this does is it creates an organic ramp up that happens gradually every single day that your mailbox is sending email. Like in this example, it'll increment 10% and your daily email limit will increase. And then we can define what we want our ending goal to be, our ending daily limit, which is 30 emails per day. And you can adjust this if you want to work it up to 35. Another good use case for ramp up mode is if your mailbox if your sender reputation ends up going down and you find that your response rates are particularly low or your bounce rates at one point particularly high for a specific mailbox, Ramp up mode can be a good recovery method too, just to start it over and start easing it back into um, some consistent email volume. So new or recovery, it can be very good, but I definitely recommend this for anyone that's just starting out and just is connecting a mailbox, especially if it's a new mailbox. Which brings up another good point. If you just registered a cold email domain and you just went and signed up and added a Outlook or Google Workspace mailbox, I recommend waiting at least a week between registering your new domain and actually adding the mailbox. I know it adds a little bit of a delay into getting started with the platform, but we've observed times when we've had a new domain and a entirely new mailbox really taking a long time to warm up to getting to a good reliable place where we're getting consistent reply rates and low bounce rates. And I think it's just the combination of the domain age being brand new and then going right into a new mailbox and then going right into sending definitely seems to penalize the mailbox a bit and adds more scrutiny. So I'd say the best practice is register your cold email domains, wait a week, go and then add the mailboxes, log into each mailbox initially, through your browser just to demonstrate a human login that isn't coming through a third-party platform, and then go and connect them to Lead Forward and then start with ramp up mode. Set delays between emails. So this is very important because what this does is this is like the real human component, right? So like with email marketing, it can send hundreds or thousands of messages every single minute on your behalf. So obviously that's not human, and that's marketing email, and that's very easy for an ISP to detect. So what we want to do is go through a delay or an approach to looking human by really replicating how a human would send email. So I would go into Outlook, I would take my time typing out my email, and then I would hit send, and then I would have to go through that process again. So what setting a delay will do is it's basically going to uh, take your last send and then wait at least X minutes before sending another. And again, this is all about creating a human pattern. So you can select that delay manually if you'd like. You can put in 12 minutes. And the good thing about our approach is the mailboxes aren't managed on a campaign by campaign level. So if you're using the same mailbox in multiple sequences, this delay is going to be set across all the sequences. So no matter what the schedule is of a particular sequence, your single mailbox is never going to send an email message faster than 12 minutes in between since the last send. We also have an AI optimized delay, which I like in particular because what we're doing is we're changing the delay every single time. So it can range from 6 minutes to 14 minutes, and it's always random in between. And that's again a good way of looking human because it's not always looking like every single X minutes your message is coming out. And all of these things matter because all of these things are easily tracked. So I'd recommend using the AI optimized delay. And as you can probably quickly see, these types of features and these types of approaches with daily limits and delays in between and ramp up, none of these things exist in email marketing. So further solidifying that this is a much different animal that we're unleashing here for your go to market. Tags, this is important because particularly as you start adding more and more mailboxes, they can become difficult to organize. But tags allow you to kind of group mailboxes together, and those groups could be, assigned to a certain member of your team, assigned to a certain, use case. So maybe this group of mailboxes is used just for cold email, and then this other set of mailboxes is only used for, warm email, and then this other set of mailboxes only belong to our customer success team when we're doing, follow-ups based on support. So the tags, and you can add multiple tags. So like if we want to do cold, warm, whatever it is, it's very helpful. And I'll show you when we're building our sequence why it's helpful. But we also, as you can kind of see down here with Gmail OAuth and MS OAuth, we also add a tag automatically based on the type of mailbox you connect. And you may get to a point when you're advancing your program to a level where you want to try to create sequences that are using a specific email service provider like Google or like Microsoft, just for testing to see how your deliverability is when you're just using those mailboxes with a certain block of prospects and recipients versus, how does Microsoft perform with, a different block, and so on and so forth. And it can be, and doing that can be very useful to figuring out if you have a deliverability problem just inside one of those platforms. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but just so you can see, you don't have to start out with all the advanced features. You can start out, very simply with just a handful of mailboxes, dip your toe in, and start scaling out your program from there. But as you do, know that you have these features and this functionality on the back end that will really allow you to, over time, scale out the program with the feature set that you would need to, kind of still focus on that fundamental goal of inbox placement. So the last piece is signature, and this is just to create signature templates by mailbox. I'll show you how this ultimately gets translated into an email message. But one thing I want to say in particular is you don't want to, because you see it's not even supported here. We don't allow you to import images to your signatures. And again, that's all because of our inbox placement focus. Images in signatures are notorious for getting emails banished to the spam folder. So you don't want to do that. While we do support adding a link, I'd recommend that you don't do that. And what you can do is just add in, a hyperlink, whether that's your website or your LinkedIn address for your profile, and just leave it as plain text, because like Google or Outlook, most mainstream mail applications are going to recognize that is a website address, and they will add the hyperlink for their user, even if you don't. And the great thing about that is it still gets hyperlinked, so a user can click on it easily, but you don't have any of the overhead of having the message suffer more scrutiny by actually having a hyperlink in your email content when it's received by the mail server. So I would recommend just putting it in text like that and leaving it. We do support adding the hyperlink if you want to, but I wouldn't do that with the cold outbound. Maybe for a different phase of your outbound funnel, but not for the top of the funnel. So once you kind of go through here, make your configurations, just click Save Settings, and that's it for the mailbox. Okay, so now that we have mailboxes set up, I'm going to take you through the mechanics of building out your campaign. So we're going to go to Sequences and click on New Sequence. My cold email campaign. I'm just going to be the assigned owner. Thread emails. So there's two different approaches for threading emails. So if you're sending through an OAuth-based mailbox with Google Workspace or with Office 365, we're actually going to set a thread ID for every email that we send to your particular recipient. And threading basically just means that every email that we send to that person with our subject line or within that thread is all going to be, if we send 3 emails over the span of our sequence or cold email campaign, the subject line is going to remain the same, and everything is going to be put together into the same conversation. So they'll always have the context of the previous email that we sent leading up to our last message. So it's great for adding context. So you don't have to go in and repeat anything that you had said before for your value proposition or any of the pain points. They'll have everything in one place. Select purpose. This is just really about organizing your sequences, access if you want it shared so other users can view it or add contacts to it. Otherwise, you can leave it as private or set it as private. When a contact replies, what do you want to do? We want to end the sequence early for that person. So basically, when someone replies, we want all the automated messaging to stop so then a human can take over the conversation. If we detect that someone is not interested or we get a do not contact reply, so this would be part of our AI sales assistance through our OpenAI connector, which I would recommend that you use. So in this case, we're going to set the person to unsubscribed. And once someone's set is unsubscribed and lead forward, their contact profile remains in the platform, but they're no longer eligible for any of our outbound tools. So they can't be enrolled in sequences. They can't be touched by workflows or anything like that. And most importantly, they don't count against your plan limit when they're set to unsubscribed. We're not sending SMS here. If a contact opts out, in this case, we're going to do end sequence and set status to unsubscribed. And now this is an important part. So this is how we are going to set our senders. So there's two approaches. One, every email step in your sequence, you could manually set which mailbox is going to send that message. In our case, we want to use smart sender rotation, which is just another term for inbox rotation. And basically what's going to happen is as soon as a contact enters our sequence, then they're going to be assigned to one of the mailboxes, one of the senders, equally within our sequence. So if we have 10 mailboxes and we add 10 contacts into our sequence to engage, each one of those contacts is going to be assigned to a different mailbox. And then once if let's say if you're adding 100, then it will continue to automatically and equally split your contacts among your group of mailboxes. And this is the way that we achieve scale by just simply adding more mailboxes to a sequence as we grow and add contacts, and then the system automatically rotates your contacts or your prospects over each one of those mailboxes. So everyone ends up with the same assignment through the entire duration of the sequence. Once someone is assigned, we don't switch them to a different mailbox. That sender will be their same sender for the life of the sequence. So now I showed you the tagging earlier, and I'm going to show you why. So let's say now we want to pick what those mailboxes are that are going to be part of this inbox rotation. So we can select the mailboxes by tag. So, we have our cold tag, and then these are all of our, mailboxes that are tagged with cold. So it's, again, that's why I like tagging, because it allows you to create those groups very easily. You can also just, you can select all of your mailboxes. You can also copy a group of mailboxes from a different sequence that you have set up as well. Maximum daily enrollment. So this is the maximum number of contacts that will move from being in an enrolled status to a working status. And once a contact moves into a working status, that means that they're eligible for they're being assigned a slot for step one. So their engagement is going to begin. What the daily enrollment limit does is it adds a pressure valve essentially to restrict how many people will move from enrolled into working. So there's a number of different scenarios for figuring out what to set this as. If you are setting up a sequence with mailboxes that are just being ramped up for the first time, then you're going to be restricted to start with for 2 emails per mailbox. So if you added 3 mailboxes, then you probably want to set this to 6, because you don't want to have a lot of people sitting around in an enrolled status for very long. And then you can come in here and you can update this value as well as your mailboxes ramp up. But just have an idea, in your mind of how many people you plan on adding versus how many steps you have, just to make sure you don't create any bottlenecks. But once you hit to 30 or 35 emails per day per mailbox, basically once your mailbox is ramped up and warm, then you can come in here and you can say, okay, well, I can do 35, per mailbox, but just keep in mind that that's total between how many new people are coming into the sequence and how many other folks might be qualifying for follow-up messages in your sequence. So you never want to do like a 1-to-1 ratio of, well, if I have 6 mailboxes and 35 is my daily limit for each mailbox, you don't want to just multiply that by 6 and make that your daily limit. Do maybe 2/3 of that, just to leave yourself enough room for follow-up emails that are going to be sent by the sequence. And then there's tags for sequences, and this is just about organizing your sequences, again, sort of into categories. And then this is useful for not just filtering and finding specific sequences, but through a lot of the reporting that exists within the platform, you can filter different sequences by tags. So if you want to see how certain sequences are performing against one another, then using the tags can be very useful for that. Okay, so this is our sequence manager, and this is where you're going to both build out your sequence, but also monitor and measure different interactions from your cold outbound. So if you've already used platforms that do any type of campaigns or cold outbounds, you might be used to a rather linear approach, where they make you add your contacts and then assign contacts to your campaign before you can actually start building out the campaign. So we've tried to be a little bit more flexible in our approach to let you kind of go in whatever order makes the most sense for you. It's not uncommon to have a team member that is responsible for building out, the copy and handling the data management, before people start actually adding prospects into the sequence. As an example, there's kind of a range of skill sets that can exist to create something like this. So we want to make it easy as possible, so you're not too stringent and rigid in terms of the approach you have to take. So the first thing I want to do is set the schedule. So the schedule is basically the days. If you look at your sequence as a series of action steps, the schedule dictates which days these action steps can take place. So, probably the most common is just defining Monday through Friday on a fixed time that you're going to start executing actions for that day. It's important to understand, even if we did just Monday through Friday at 7 a.m., that doesn't mean that everyone that's in your sequence is going to get an email on Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. There are two sort of governing controls of schedule and frequency. So schedule is just saying that, okay, on Monday through Friday, you can send emails, and that's kind of it. But within the sequence timeline that you're going to see, we're going to have time delays or pauses that exist in between our email steps. And a recipient that's in your campaign or in your sequence is going to have to complete that time delay before they become eligible for the next step. So that controls frequency with the steps in the timeline. And then this is just setting forth your schedule for days that conceivably the sequence can send emails to recipients that are eligible to receive them. But you can get very specific with how you want this to be set up. So, I could do multiple touch points weekly and come up with a different, time for each day, or, definitely wouldn't want to do multiple days, but, or multiple touch points in the same day. And then even you could go out and say, monthly, and say that on the first Monday, on the second Wednesday. So you can be very, very flexible with, what your overall campaign strategy actually looks like. So we'll just do very simple Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Okay, so now that's done. If you want to get replies sent to you, you can create. Let me see. Yeah. So if you want to get replies sent to you, you can create alert policies, and alert policies are useful. So if you have a bunch of mailboxes, obviously all your replies are going to go into our unified inbox. But if you want to get notified of when to check your unified inbox, we can automatically forward you any replies to an email address, or we can also send it to a webhook endpoint. And that can be useful if you're sending these to your CRM, or if you want to send, just as an example, you want to get alerts in a Slack channel when you get a reply. All of that can be managed with alert policies. We have a great article that walks you through creating a custom policy or setting it up for our Slack connector. But it's very common just to get replies sent to a Slack channel, so everyone on your team is aware that when a response comes back, instead of having to check the unified inbox every few minutes to see, it can be useful just to cut down on having another app to constantly monitor. And since most people that use Slack are working in Slack regularly, that's a good one. Or just getting the replies forwarded to your mailbox, a team mailbox, whatever the case may be. Very easy with alert policies. So to start, all we're going to do is add our first step to the sequence, which in our case, we want to send an email. So you can see right from the top in the email drawer, smart sender rotations enabled. So we're not picking a sender here. We would add our subject line here, and then get into actually putting together our email. Now, I'm not going to get into practices for messaging because that would make this video, which I'm already over my time estimate for too long, but I will do a follow-up on that. And within our cold email launch guide, we have some suggestions for writing and kind of just the overall purpose or flow that you should be going with your cold email. We do have a bunch of templates as well if you're looking for some inspiration. Not all of these are relevant for every audience, but if you're just looking for different types of messaging from a lot of very talented go-to-market teams, you can start here, preview a template, and then drop it into your message. Within the drawer itself, you'll see our personalize menu, and these personalization fields link back to your contact database for all of the data that either you've imported through LinkedIn, or if you've imported a spreadsheet of your own prospects, then all those data fields translate into a personalization tag like first name as an example, that can be then merged into as a variable into your email message for every single recipient. So like here, this is a good example with John Doe. So if we have sender rotation enabled, and let's just say that the sequence is shared by multiple team members, well, then we can't have a static signature inside the message. So we want to rely on our sender signature that was set up within our mailbox settings for each mailbox. And that's pretty simple to do. Just go select sender signature. And then this is going to be automatically filled with, the signature for Bugs Bunny, for example, at Acme would appear here. So this will automatically pull in for every single message sent based on whomever the mailbox sending is. And you can also, that's the signature block, but you could also do, if you wanted to have something that was a little bit, if you just wanted to use the name, for example, of the sender and maybe show their email address, you can do that as well. So those are the three options for putting together a signature. This would be more or less like doing something that's a little bit more custom and maybe including some other static information that doesn't change, like the company website, or the showing the company physical address, things like that. Within the email drawer, so let's take a look at the actual options that you have. One, anytime you want to preview your email, you can pop open this dialog, enter where you want the proof to go, and then you can also select start typing the name of any contact in your database, and then what that'll do is we'll use that contact as a basis for filling in the variables from any personalization tags in your email. So if you wanted to select, John Doe from your contact database, it's not that we're going to send the email preview to John Doe. We're just going to show you what the email would look like when we send it to your email address if you were John Doe. So it's a great way of just testing personalization. It's also a great way of testing Spintax and AI email prompts as well. That's kind of an advanced case, which I don't want to, again, get too far into the weeds on that, but that would be more or less this is a good way for testing that. In terms of unsubscribes, you can add an opt-out link to your email. If you're using our AI sales assistants, I'd say that you could avoid adding the opt-out link, because the problem with opt-out links, in my judgment, depending on where you are and where you're reaching out, you might not have any choice in terms of compliance, but offering that in terms of having that, inside the US, where you're governed by CAN spam, you just need some mechanism that is going to initiate an opt-out or fulfill an opt-out request in a certain period of time. So that doesn't mean it has to be, with a link, but the reason people like links is because then they don't have to manage it. But if you're using our AI sales assistants, you can add a note into your email. Just an example: if this isn't a good fit, just let me know and I won't bug you. Making it very, very human. But just basically, so you check your box that you've included a mechanism for someone to opt out, or instructions on how. And if someone replied to an email, don't bug me, or, unsubscribe or stop, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter what the language is. Your AI sales assistant will detect it as a clear do not contact request, and they'll automatically set the record to unsubscribe in your lead forward database and remove them from the sequence. So you don't have to deal with any of it. It's completely automated. I'd recommend using that because it's foolproof. It's automatic, so you don't have to worry that your folks are being handled from a compliance perspective, and avoid you having to have an opt-out link inside your email message, which again, as we talked about earlier, just invites more scrutiny because a one-to-one sales email between you and your prospect that if you were to send it manually from your mailbox, you wouldn't include an opt-out link in that. So it's kind of a clear sign that this is a marketing message or it's a message that's sent from a platform. So that's that. I spoke earlier about plain text. That's as simple as just clicking this checkbox. Now, I will say that if you had something that was bold or underlined or in italics or whatever the case may be, or an image or a link, none of that translates to plain text. But for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier, that's a benefit. That's not an issue. If you wanted to still send an HTML with just some basic formatting, obviously don't click that. But by default, we're not tracking opens or clicks. If you did want to, you'd have to check those. And if you want to auto BCC to a BCC address that's defined for any of the mailboxes that you're sending from, just click that, and then we'll initiate that BCC header in your email message to either your CRM, or if you're just collecting every single email that's sent into a specific mailbox, you can do that. But you'll want to enable it there. I do recommend plain text though. And to disable the automatic opt-out link, you'll just unclick that message and click Save Options. Excuse me. The opt-out link is enabled by default, so you will have to disable it. If you clone an email message in your sequence, which I'll show you right now, which is just this button, clone, okay. And once it appears on your timeline, you'll see that opt-out link is then enabled again. So you want to come up here, disable it, and that's basically just to make sure, because we have users all over the world, and in different countries there are different compliance measures. So we want to make sure that's not an oversight for someone. If they are required to have it, then they're not forgetting to enable it. So you do have to opt out of using the opt-out. Now, okay, so now we have two messages sitting here, and we want to add a delay in between, right? Because on Monday through Friday, we don't want someone that got this message on Monday at 7 a.m. to then on Tuesday at 7 a.m. get the next message. Now, there's more complexity around whether or not they would be qualified anyway, but let's just go with our best practice, which is we need a time delay in between. So on any step here, like if we look at, so if you want to edit your message, let's cover what these tools actually do. That's how you can edit it. So time sensitive, if for some reason you have some type of offer or some type of messaging that's specifically going to expire, like, if you're referencing a holiday, or if you are offering a discount that's expiring in 3 weeks, you can set the email message to be time sensitive. So it expires on a certain date. And once you do that, and once the email expires, that will no longer send out to anyone. So your prospects would just skip over that step and move to the next one. So now we're going to do new step. And whenever you click new step on any row, it's going to automatically add that step immediately below this particular row. So in our case, we're going to do pause delay, and we'll do 5 days. Now, a lot of folks ask, what the optimal amount of touch points are for cold email. Because I am so naturally scared of the report spam button and all the impact that can have on your mailbox reputation, I like to keep frequency very minimal. Because if you're messaging and you're going after if you have good messaging, you're going after the right audience. You don't really need to have a great deal of frequency. 2, maybe 3 email messages. Certainly, not, in a small window of time. I mean, 5 days, again, depending on your audience, could be too little. You may want to have some more. So what I'm doing these days, or recommending, and what I've seen work the best, is if you're going to add a third step, make sure you do it, out 14 or 21 days, and then let that be it. I'm also not a big fan of, breakup emails or anything like that. Yeah, just super simple is typically more than enough. But if you did want to, extend out beyond just 2 touch points, you certainly can do that. And obviously, this is just about cold email. We're not even, talking about adding in other channels or things like that at this point. Okay, so if I was building this, I would probably stop at 2 steps. So you notice right off the bat, these emails are not enabled on the timeline. You can see the red toggle. So you want to enable those before you go and turn on the sequence, which is handled by this toggle up here. And now it's set. Now you can start enrolling folks. There's a lot of different ways to add your recipients to the sequence, and I just want to cover a few for clarity's sake. So one, you can select specific contacts. So you could search for individual folks by name or email address to add them in, and these would be folks that exist in your contact database. Which again, other platforms have you import contacts into your campaign each time. Lead4ward doesn't work that way. We have the centralized contact database. So you're not replicating folks over and over again into different campaigns, and they're not just living in those campaign silos. Your contacts exist inside Lead4ward, and you can add them to as many sequences as you want. We'll just track them and their entire life cycle across all of the various tools within Lead4ward. So you have one centralized contact record with their full history. So instead of having to create those baskets individually for each campaign, you just import your contacts into Lead4ward into your contact database and then add them to your sequence. Now that can be done with our LinkedIn prospector if you're doing fresh prospecting. And then if you import a CSV into Lead4ward, once that's complete and you want to add those folks into your sequence, then you would want to do select contact list or segment, and then you just start typing the name of the CSV that you imported. It'll appear as a segment, and then you can add it in. If you're tagging records, you can tag contacts just like we tag mailboxes, tagging the sequence. It's again just about organizing, but the tagging can be useful because anytime a contact with a specific tag appears in the platform, then they're going to get pulled into this particular sequence. So it's a nice way of just having one, variable value that the sequence is constantly looking for to see, is anyone new have this tag? Yes. Okay. We're going to move them into the sequence. So those are like the three main ways within the application that you would be able to move them into the sequence. But you can also do it from the contact manager as well, which we'll probably have a separate tutorial on. But in terms of just getting from point A to cold email sequence being ready to deploy, this is it. And I hope that this was useful. Again, there are a lot of best practices we're going to continue to cover, but this is kind of just like more the mechanical way of getting into the sequence, which actually what I do want to do, because it is simple and it is not that advanced. Let me just show you Spintax very quickly. And if you're not familiar with Spintax, it's exactly what it sounds like, which is that we're spinning syntax, or another way of saying is we're spinning copy. And what it allows you to do is to create multiple versions of your email for every single recipient. So for example, this spin is a greeting spin. So if we were to put this in the start of our email message, the platform would automatically at random take one of these different values, whether it's good day, hey there, hi there, hello, all of that for every single email we send. So you can have as many Spintax sections within your email as you want. And it's just a very easy way to create quick, unique looking versions of your email. And the reason that that's really valuable, it's not that ISPs are in some way not able to detect this type of approach, but the less templated your email looks like, which I'll say means, that, okay, so we're personalizing with first name here, right? That's not necessarily a personalized email, because all this other copy, with the exception of maybe including the company name of your target, is all the same. And ISPs can obviously detect, how frequently they've seen this combination of characters and words together from this particular sender or this particular domain, which could indicate that it's being sent from an automated platform and not from a person. So going with the Spintax approach can at least help alleviate some of that by creating unique versions of your message for every single recipient. Now, the more advanced version of that would be AI email prompts, but that's a whole other topic. And that would be more of an advanced use case for users that want to start playing around with AI prompts and using them inside email to craft copy on the fly for every single recipient. We will get to that, but for now, I do think even for a starter, a novice user that's just getting into this first time, Spintax is very easy. And all it is, we have these two starting brackets and ending brackets. Everything that's in between there that's separated by a vertical bar just becomes a variation. And you can see in here, we have a lot of different templates of what you can, consider doing, but you can get very creative with it. And, again, it's just another tool in the toolbox to ultimately help with deliverability. So yeah, definitely consider checking that out. And plus, one other thing too, once you have any of these features enabled, like Spintax will show you right in the timeline view of your sequence. Like in this case, we're using plain text. That's this icon. Threading's enabled, and we're using Spintax. Okay, we are at 50 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. If this happened to kick off more questions in your mind, please reach out. We're happy to help, and there will be more like this. Thank you.